never intentionally hit somebody with a baton in the head. It would look intentional. But I wouldn't do nothing like that ever. I would never inflict pain on anybody. I'm not that type of person. I would never do that to nobody. You have to believe me. Why would I do that to somebody? If you look at the footage, you will see that I'm innocent. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that type of. I'm not a monster.
Well, guys, I'm back one more time. You know who I am. I'm that dude from Columbia, South Carolina, named Drummer 1980. I hope you're having a good day today, and if that's not the case, ask yourself why, because after all, happiness is an inside job, and it will always be an internal effect. Well, guys, we back today again with something new that I promised y'all some months back, and I always deliver on my promises because I'm a man of my word. Drum roll, please. Let me introduce y'all to Professor BlackTruth. For the people that don't know him, because a lot of us know him. This is a voice that has been crying out in the wilderness for quite some time, and it's a necessary voice. He always comes with facts, undisputed facts, undeniable facts, okay? He always substantiates his arguments on everything. Get your popcorn. Let's go.
I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Waterbury, Connecticut, February 17th, 2025, 8:42 p.m. Typically, stories about the proverbial evil stepmother are the things of children's fairy tales, but something people need to remember is that those stories like Hansel and Gretel and Cinderella and others were based on the kind of savagery that was happening in Europe at the time, and we still see it today. On the evening of February 17th, firefighters responded to a 911 call about an active fire. Inside the home in question, they found a man who they rescued. He was coughing from smoke inhalation and suffering from injuries. He was severely malnourished, to the point that the firefighters had to carry him out. He was the stepson of the woman who owned the house. The stepson was 32 years old, and even though he was 5'9", he only weighed a shocking 68 pounds. The emaciated man admitted that he was the one who set the fire as a way to summon help. He said that he had used a lighter, hand sanitizer, and printed paper. When the authorities asked him why he set fire to the house, he said he wanted his freedom. The man's stepmother owned the house. She was there at the time of the fire, but she refused to speak to the police. The man was brought to a nearby hospital where the police said he was intubated and diagnosed with cachexia, or wasting syndrome, a form of severe physical deterioration normally found in patients with conditions like advanced cancer. When investigators asked him if he had ever experienced hunger, he said, "All day, every day, my entire life." So he was being kept in a state of perpetual torture is what this is. He had a life-threatening body mass index of 11 and appeared to be near starvation. He had a decreased ability to use his arms and legs or to even twist his torso. Court documents said he was suffering from depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and that he was functioning at an adolescent cognitive level. Police say that this man had been held captive by his stepmother since he was 11 years old in a room that was only 8 by 9 feet without heat in the winter or air conditioning in the summer. The door to the room had a lock on it, one that police say had been changed a number of times over the decades. The victim told first responders that after he had set the fire, his stepmother and another person whose identity was redacted in the court documents had gotten him out of the room, but only for the purposes of rushing to try to wash his face and try to clean him up as quickly as they could. His stepmother and this unnamed person had even tried to remove the slide bolt lock from the outside of the door frame in an effort to keep firefighters from realizing what the stepmother had been doing. Now, I'm not going to disgust you with all the details of how this tragic individual was forced to endure 22 hours a day locked in a space the size of a closet for 2 decades and being systematically starved for his entire life. But I will give you just a few of the examples of the evils that were taking place in plain sight.
Is there any question so far? Guys, the truth of the matter is there are monsters that live amongst us. And this is one of them, ladies and gentlemen. They kept this guy in a closet, basically. an 8x9 closet for 20 hours a day. Could y'all just imagine that? See, now this is the type of evil that we deal with all the time. And people try to shun us and try to act like it's not there. You see, some of these people will gobble up their own. So imagine what they'll do to you. Imagine what they do to your kids. These kids that's adopted. Oh, we're going to get into it in just a few minutes, okay? This guy literally had to set a fire to call out for help, basically, guys. 5'9", 6 to 8 pounds. That's a beanpole, guys. 5'9", 6 to 8 pounds. That's a beanpole. Okay? Hold on, but the story is going to get very interesting, okay? Get your popcorn now.
At age 3, the victim remembered sneaking out of his room at night to scour for leftover food or anything to drink. He began to be locked in his room during the evenings when food wrappings were discovered. He would leave the house to go to school, but he would be locked in his room as soon as he came home, he said. He was given so little food and water that when he was let out, he would drink from the toilet bowl, beg or steal food from other children in class, or forage for scraps in the trash cans at school. Now, with this kind of behavior going on, you're probably thinking there's no way that nobody knew about this and that nobody noticed what this child was going through. And you would be right.
We knew it. We reported it. Not a damn thing was done. That's the tragedy of the whole thing.
Tom Pannone hasn't seen the alleged victim since he was in 4th grade in the early 2000s, but says he always knew something was wrong. He was the principal at the now closed Barnard Elementary School and says he and his staff noticed that the child was extremely small and thin. He says when they asked him questions, the boy told them he wasn't allowed food at times at the house.
Everyone really was concerned with this child since he was 5 years old. You knew something was wrong. It was grossly wrong.
He says teachers would even bring food in for the student. He says he and his team made multiple calls to his stepmom, Kimberly Sullivan, and called the Department of Children and Families at least 20 times. The arrest warrant says the student was told to lie and say everything was fine. But by 5th grade, he never came back to school.
You don't disappear off the face of the earth at 10 years old.
Pannone was told the student was enrolled in Wolcott schools, but he couldn't find any records of that. He was also told at one point the boy was homeschooled.
So the school's principal knew about it. The teachers knew about it. They brought this child food because they knew that he was being starved. It was the school personnel who had contacted the state's Department of Children and Families to report this abuse. But those guys from the state, they visited the family home on 2 occasions, they claimed, and they talked to the child and was told that everything's fine as far as they were concerned. Okay, nothing wrong here. And apparently nobody cared when this child didn't return to school after the DCF's second visit. At this point, he had been in the 4th grade, but after that, a more intense period of captivity began. Once he was pulled from school, his weekday routine became brutally consistent for the remainder of his captivity. The stepson was locked away for several hours every day, except for when he was allowed to complete various chores that took anywhere between 15 minutes and 2 hours to complete. On weekends, the victim's father allowed him to watch television or pitch in with yard work while the stepmother and the victim's sisters were out. Now, did you catch that? The victim wasn't just in the clutches of this evil stepmother alone. His own father was in on it too, and his sisters knew about it, and possibly other relatives as well. His immediate family all knew what was happening to him. They were seeing it, but not one of them intervened.
Is anybody tracking the professor so far? Is anybody tracking the professor thus far? Is there any questions? I know some of y'all probably, oh, well, that was just one person. Principals, the teachers, law enforcement, everybody. The dad, the sisters, family, relatives, everybody. I'm going to just do a little side note. Now, this what would happen if there wasn't the propaganda machine study pointing the finger at black people all day. You will hear stories like this all the time, but you notice you don't hear them, but every now and then. And this what inspired me. The professor videos inspire me to do something on my channel. What I do is I just go to my community tab and I post news articles and articles every day showing you the other side, what I call the other side, simply because I'm showing you how the news conglomerates work. They will show one side of what's happening. And that alone will cast a false sense of criminality on the black folks. And you will totally ignore what everybody else is doing, which they commit way more crime than you have ever committed. Trust me. And that's what inspired me. Professor inspired me to do that. So I show y'all these stories about people being in freezers, dead, up on the floors, put concrete on top of them, smothering children. I mean, just some of the most heinous acts you ever want to hear about. See, you don't hardly hear about those stories like this. And shout out to Professor BlackTruth for lighting the fire under my glutes, all right? You understand that?
Had lived with both his father and stepmother, but following the father's death in 2024, things got even worse for the victim. He was then only being given up to 2 sandwiches a day, 2 small bottles of water, and maybe a little bit of tuna fish. When the authorities asked him why he never told anyone about his situation, he said that he was scared that he would be locked into that closet permanently and given even less food than the meager amount that he had received. Court documents say that his stepmother threatened that if he ever told anyone, he would never see the light of day. So what he was saying is that he was scared that if he did tell anyone, then the authorities wouldn't actually do anything, and he would be stuck with this vengeful, hateful demon that he was trapped with. That's what he was afraid of. Even if he talked, nothing would be done about it. And it turned out he was right. You would expect that faced with this ghastly circumstance on February 17th, the police immediately arrested this satanic female for this horrifying crime. And you would be wrong, because genetic immunity from law is real. The police decided to wait another month before they finally decided that maybe they ought to charge this woman with something. They arrested 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan, who is now facing 5 criminal charges, including first-degree assault, second-degree kidnapping, first-degree unlawful restraint, cruelty, and first-degree reckless endangerment. She was given bond of $300,000, which she posted almost immediately, and she is, of course, denying everything along with her lawyers. Now, there have been instances like this that have happened in other communities other than this one, but the first time that somebody reports it, say if it happens in the black community, those kids are going to be immediately snatched up and put into CPS. Even in cases where there's no physical abuse, it's only too easy to have black children removed from their parents on a mere accusation or just suspicion. So how was this incident allowed to go on and on and on for 20 years? Once this child was pulled from that school, that was the end of the state's interest in him. No follow-up, no questions about why this child was suddenly no longer going to school, no nothing, as if the authorities decided that he no longer existed. How could they allow this? For the same reason that Dante Hart and his siblings were able to be systematically starved and abused, even after they had been in nationwide headlines when their so-called foster parents forced them to act like they loved the police. You see, these sick degenerates from the dominant society love to psychologically torture children, and nothing is ever done about it. That lets them indulge all of their sick whims. That's what was happening here. This is why it's profoundly disturbing when we find black children getting adopted by the dominant society. And it's not just mental degenerates in the sticks or in the suburbs who abuse black adoptees with impunity. Steven Spielberg adopted a black girl, and come to find out years later, she admitted to having been sexually abused for years. And while Spielberg was never accused of anything, the question is, how did such a rich, famous, high-profile man like him have a situation with a girl in his custody who was being abused, and allegedly he didn't know anything about it? Whenever black children get adopted by certain people, we find all of this evil, degenerate behavior going on. This makes it clear that this is the reason they want to get their hands on children in the first place. People are going to need to accept that there's individuals in this world who simply want nothing more than to indulge their own satanic, sadistic whims on people. You don't torture a child from the day that they're a toddler up until their 30s simply because you didn't know any better. You do it because you want to. There's evil in this world, but the white media refuses to put a face on it. So this Sullivan woman isn't the only one who practices depraved indifference for life. And of course, the thugs in blue are patting themselves on the back. The same individuals who did absolutely nothing about this for 20 years and who didn't even bother to make an arrest for a month, but they want to take credit for how hard they worked on this case. When the truth of the matter was, the victim saved himself. Just ridiculous. The thugs in blue never miss a chance to take any tragedy and try to make it all about themselves.
There you have it, guys. Nothing but the truth. You can't refute this truth here. That's why whenever I do see black children with different races and all that, I feel a way about it because I do understand the nature. And it's not my fault. And people get upset because you talk about the nature of certain individuals. It's not all people. Of course it's not. But it's enough, okay? The good folks don't ever say nothing about the bad ones. So as far as I'm concerned, well, I cast a whole net over everybody there since the good ones don't want to speak up. You know a person have to be evil to their core to exercise complete dominance and put all type of egregious behaviors and sadistic acts onto children. Someone that can't protect themselves. And this woman did this for 20 years, just like Jeffrey Dahmer did. He wasn't some mastermind and he was just evading police. There was people telling the whole time. The police just didn't do their job. Or maybe perhaps they knew and just didn't want to do anything. The bodies have to pile up to the ceiling first. And that's the same thing here in many other cases that we have seen in the past. And we will see some in the future. These people are not smart. They just get away with everything. And that's the same thing with the financial segment, the religious segment, the entertainment segment, and we can keep going, okay? It's in all areas of activity, according to Dr. Neely Fuller. It's in all areas. This is how they play. And you know who's going to be the bad guy? Professor BlackTruth, Jason Black, Tariq Nasheed, Torrey Reloaded, Marcel Dixon, Black Afro Network, Afro Elite, That's the bad guys, though. Drama, those are the bad people. You will point the finger at them and say that they being divisive. We just need to come together. No, we don't. You couldn't fool me to come together. I'm going to tell you like Jesus told him, I didn't come to bring unity. I came to bring division because you can't be snugged up and hugged up with everybody. Only a fool would think that way. You have to get with like-minded individuals in order to make the needle move. All right? If you have a sister or either a brother or a cousin or somebody that's on drugs and then their children get taken, if you can, please, go get them children. Don't let them children get into no CPS system. Please, don't do that. Because there's some evil people out there, guys. I'm telling you, they people out there that would love to get their hands on this innocent blood. This is what they live for, to torture and to do all type of evil acts to innocent children. All right? But guys, tell me what y'all think about this video. There are monsters amongst us, guys, that's walking around smiling, but have a hate that's embedded in their heart, guys. But go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the share button, guys, and donate if you will. And shout out to Professor BlackTruth because he always come with the fire. Guys, I implore y'all to go to his channel. It is Professor BlackTruth on YouTube. All right, guys, until next time, peace. And remember, there is more.